Welcome to another edition of Down the Road. I'm Joel Heitkamp. I'm your host. We're going to get a chance to visit about a number of things. Afghanistan's going to be on the table. Vaccine and COVID is going to be on the table. You might say, gee, Heitkamp, hitting that again. Well, look at the numbers. Look at what's going on. Look at where we sit today. Look at what's happening. Perfect example of what I'm getting at. Kid Rock, a bunch of people don't want to get vaccinated in the band. Half his band is out to where he had to cancel his tour for right now, or at least postpone some certain dates after having played Sturgis. So it's real, folks. It's real, and yet we're still not getting vaccinated. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But first, redistricting. Matt Perdue is with government relations with the North Dakota Farmers Union. He's the man that stands up in front of committees and says, look, this is the position of North Dakota Farmers Union, and I hope you take a chance to have a conversation with us about it. So let's bring him in. Matt, good to have you coming down the road with us.
Thanks a lot for having me on, Joel.
Your focus is on redistricting. You've taken a number of positions. Explain, probably best to start this way, explain where North Dakota Farmers Union is at when it comes to redistricting.
So when you look at the results of the 2020 census, we have pretty explosive growth here in North Dakota, 16% population growth. And where that growth occurred was largely in urban areas and in the oil-producing counties. And so North Dakota Farmers Union, our primary concern is making sure that rural folks, farmers and ranchers, rural citizens, have fair representation at the legislature. And so we've kind of laid out a few principles. Of course, we don't want districts to unnecessarily cross county lines. We want to retain communities of common interest. And we want to maintain geographical balance in our legislature. We also think that as some of these rural districts get much, much larger, and as other North Dakotans who live in primarily rural districts now, but will be in urban-rural splits, we think in those situations it's worth looking at how we can, whether we can subdivide our districts for purposes of House representation to retain those communities of common interest within district boundaries.
So there's a lot of talk about North Dakota's population growth, about how we were one of the leaders in the nation in terms of percentage-wise growing our population, and yet 30 counties didn't grow. That, for Farmers Union, are a lot of people that you represent and try to look out for from the rural area. How do you weigh all that? There's going to be 47 legislative districts, just like there was 10 years ago. 47 legislative districts. People came and they decided that the cities are their home. Fargo is expanding to the south to beat heck. Bismarck is expanding to the north and the south a little bit. I mean, it's how do you fix all of this in terms of making sure that that rural voter is represented?
Yeah, so I think when you look at the eastern half of the state in particular, you're going to see districts get much, much larger. Our districts, the average district is going to grow by 2,500 people. And we have these 30 counties, as you noted, that lost population. And so our rural districts are going to get much, much larger, particularly in the eastern half of the state. And as that district gets larger, you have situations, or you have the potential for situations where all three legislators might live on one far end of the district, 80 miles from some of their constituents. And so our goal is really to make sure that folks in all corners of every district have good access to their legislators, feel like their legislators represent their interests, feel like they have an opportunity to provide that constituent feedback. And that's really where we think this subdividing idea can come in, where this AB district concept can come in. And it's really, the numbers tell us what the numbers tell us. But we have a responsibility to make sure that within that context, we're not unnecessarily lowering or reducing somebody's representation at the legislature.
Well, I want to talk about that a little bit because, the lines themselves, we'll get into just a little bit later in terms of how they're drawn. But, it's a couple times here you've mentioned sub-districts. I just want for our viewers to really understand what you're getting at when it comes to sub-districts. And maybe the map will help, maybe it won't help. The map has helped me. But, take a look at it. Tell me what you think about sub-districts.
So when you talk about sub-districts, really what you're talking about is having 47 Senate districts and dividing each of those districts in half by population so that the House districts are essentially more local. We are one of 10 states in the country that have what we call multi-member districts, meaning that we have two members of the House of Representatives elected from the same geography. The United States Congress, you have 2 senators from every state, but then in a lot of states, you have multiple Congress members who are elected from different portions of that state. And so when you're talking about subdividing districts, you're talking about dividing it in half by population, so the geography that each representative from that district represents is different.
So let's go back to that because you talk about sub-districts, and you make an absolutely great point about how members of Congress are elected in states on a federal level, where you have 2 U.S. senators and you might have 8, 9 congressmen from any given state. But if you look at that in the rural area, isn't that something where the rural area loses as well? Because, if you end up with 2 House members from a very small district, and I'll use Fargo and Bismarck as examples again, they might be overlapping. There might be a line that divides them. But as far as being able to work collectively together, it's going to be a lot easier for them than it's going to be in South Central or Southwest North Dakota.
So when you look at subdividing these districts, another key example here to think about is when you have a district that is urban-rural split. And let's say you have a district, the districts are 16,500 people. Let's say that you have a district that is 12,000 urban, 4,500 rural. That 4,500, the 4,500 rural constituents in that district are in a minority. But if you subdivide that district, if you have 8,000 in each subdivision of that district or each half of that district, the rural part of that district, or the part that's still a little bit urban-rural split, is going to have a pretty equal split of urban and rural constituents, really giving those rural constituents an opportunity to have their voices heard in a way they probably wouldn't if that district is, 3/4 urban and 1/4 rural.
So, Matt, is this something that is just going to happen, that we're going to lose? And I live in a rural area, that we're just going to continue to lose representation, that the state is becoming more urban? That was always a conversation when I was in. I first got elected in 1993, I believe. And so is that something that's just going to continue? I was elected in 94. Sorry about that. First session was 95. Is that something that is going to continue to be a conversation? Because it was then. I mean, it was then. How we could form rural coalitions, how we needed to stick together, Republican and Democrat from rural areas, or we were going to get rolled by some of the urban areas. And it didn't always work. Sometimes we did get rolled. And then you add in the redistricting that we went through after 2000, and it happened even in a worse fashion. I guess what I'm getting at, Matt, is we can talk about concept, we can talk about districts, we can talk about lines, but are we just putting off a situation we all know is true, which is there's far less rural residents now?
I mean, I think the unfortunate reality is that we have for a very long time seen a trend where our rural areas are becoming less and less populated. And that's why Farmers Union has always so focused on supporting rural communities, supporting value-added agriculture, supporting farmers and ranchers, so we can keep people in those rural communities and keep a high quality of life. But the trend is that folks are gravitating, and it's not just in North Dakota, but folks are gravitating towards urban areas, that the rural areas are losing population, the urban areas are growing larger. And so, when we talk about redistricting, there are obviously very important considerations. We are also going to have to work harder to stress to urban constituents that agriculture has always been the cornerstone of North Dakota's economy. And so when we talk about agricultural issues, when we talk about rural issues, we're talking about North Dakota issues. And so, we got to get through this redistricting conversation and make sure that we are preserving rural representation as much as we can. But then we need to move towards how do we build new coalitions? How do we continue to stress the importance of agriculture to North Dakota?
This may be a little aside, but is North Dakota Farmers Union, when you look back, when you reflect on it, should we have 4-year house terms? Should we have the type of house terms where they're, because of the fact that they need to be so much more localized, that then they would basically be looking at an election coming up? Would that help?
So I'm certainly not an expert on a lot of these issues, but I think it is important. We think about some of these issues in North Dakota and we automatically jump to, oh, is this a partisan issue? What side is my party on? But really, when you look around the country, again, we're one of 10 states that have multi-member districts. So we're kind of an exception to the rule in terms of having single-member House districts. We're also, one of the states that has 4-year House terms. That's not the case with Congress. That's not the case in some states. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity to innovate here, a lot of opportunity to have some of these discussions. I'm not sure we're going to see a lot of radical change in terms of how we structure our legislature and our districts. But it's certainly a good time to have those conversations.
I want to talk about lines when we come back, ladies and gentlemen. As Matt mentioned, the number is 16,500, that in a perfect district, that would be about the number of people living in it. Obviously, there's got to be a little more, a little less for certain districts. I'll get his take on that as well. But really what we're trying to get to is the fairest system we can. And so when we come back, we're going to take another look at that map. We're going to get a chance to visit with Matt about what practices have been in the past and how we can change that for the future. Not the least of which, I'm going to ask him, and I don't know if I'm going to get an answer or not, but Matt, if you're still listening, know I'm going to ask you whether or not there should be an independent commission that deals with this. So stick around. We're going to keep traveling down the road.
It's a Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our hay-bossing breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
He once won a spelling bee in an ancient language that he did not speak. He is the only man to ever earn extra credit on an IQ exam. His academic degrees are considered legitimate spending currency in 22 nations, 2 principalities, and at Chick-fil-A restaurants in the United States and Western Canada.
I do not always engage with education programming, but when I do, it is the Dr. Duke Show.
Stay educated with the Dr. Duke Show, weekdays at 4 p.m. on Beck News.
Hi, Hunter Ellis here for Night Hero Binoculars by Atomic Beam. These binoculars let you see anything, even in pitch black darkness. Gotcha.
The secrets are powerful wide-angle atomic beam laser that reveals objects up to 150 yards away, hidden by darkness.
During the day, Night Hero gives you 10 times magnification. And when the sun goes down, press the Night Bright button to see clearly in the dark. Light up garbage-eating critters or spot thieves before they even get close. Call or click now and get Night Hero binoculars for just $39.99. Order right now and you can double it. Plus, get our best-selling atomic beam flashlight. Just pay a separate fee. We'll even ship them to you free. This TV special offer is not available on Amazon. You can get it all, but you have to order now.
Call 1-800-619-1091. That's 1-800-619-1091. Or visit bynighthero.com. That's bynighthero.com. Order now.
Attention! Have you or a loved one suffered from maculopathy, a serious retinal injury, after taking the prescription drug Elmiron for interstitial cystitis or bladder pain syndrome? In 2018, a researcher at the Emory School of Medicine linked Elmiron, a prescription drug that treats interstitial cystitis or bladder pain syndrome, to maculopathy, which is sight-threatening and can cause an abrupt change of vision. Call Elmiron Justice for a free legal consultation.
Please call 800-395-5680. Non-attorney spokesperson. This is a paid advertisement for legal services sponsored by Nightline Legal. Cases assigned on a random basis to participating law firms. This drug remains approved by the FDA. If you or a loved one regularly took Zantac and were later diagnosed with cancer, call right now. You may be entitled to financial compensation. Potential cancers include bladder cancer, colon cancer, kidney cancer, stomach cancer, liver cancer, pancreatic cancer. Do not stop taking a prescribed medication without first consulting with your doctor. Discontinuing a prescribed medication without your doctor's advice can result in injury or death.
Call 1-800-230-9210.
We're talking with Matt Perdue with the North Dakota Farmers Union. He's Government Relations Director, and we're talking about redistricting. We're talking about how we can make this not only as fair as we can, rural-urban, because we're really not talking Democrat-Republican. We're talking about rural representation in the legislature. And one of the things that we hadn't really hit upon, Matt, you mentioned it in the previous segment, that 16,500 people is going to be the optimum population in each legislative district, but that can fluctuate, can it not?
Yeah, so there are some legal precedents and constitutional issues when it comes to that, but they're allowed about a 10% range or 10% variance. And so, you could have your smallest district could be 5% less than that 16,500, your largest district 5% more. Those are really the bounds that you have to operate within. And so we'll see some of that. We've had that every redistricting process that I'm aware of. We'll see some of that, but there are bounds as to how far they can deviate from that roughly 16,500 number.
I want to talk a little bit about North Dakota Farmers Union position when it comes to counties, because if I'm in a rural area, which many of your farmers are, I know where the county lines are. I might not know where the legislative district is or where that line is, but I sure know where the county lines are. I sure know where the township lines are. How big of a factor should that play into all of this?
Well, we think it's really important that you preserve the lines where you can and where they exist. And so that means, you first start, you try to preserve those county lines best you can. One of the frustrating things that we've seen is every now and then you see a little corner of a county that's cut out. That's not great. Sometimes we're going to have to cut these counties down the middle, but let's try to make sure we keep those county lines as much as possible. You go down from county lines, let's go along township lines, let's go along school district lines. Let's make sure that people who vote for the same people in the county commission election or are part of the same constituency are part of the same constituency for the legislature as much as we can.
That's an absolutely fabulous point in this conversation, because when I was a legislator, I had to deal with 3 counties. I mean, those were the 3 counties I worked on, but those were the 3 counties. I had Western Richland County, which Richland County was big enough then to where, you couldn't have 2. You couldn't have Richland County be one whole legislative district. And so you had to cut it up, just like you just said. But Ransom Sargent, I was the one that dealt with those county commissioners. The county commission knew where they were going to go. There's no tougher job in the world than being a county commissioner or a school board member. I, as a legislator, got to go and hide in Bismarck. That happened all the time. There was that disconnect where nobody's sitting in your driveway. And so when you hear, as a legislator, from a county commissioner, it matters. And going back to what you just said, people just saw the map and they saw where the counties were all chopped up. In fact, bring that up again, guys. And I just want to give Matt a chance to show what I'm talking about. Look at those county lines. Now, you can say that it's 16,500 or it's 5% over or 5% under. But Matt, there is so many ways to make this whole county-wise. And so it begs this question: should this be done by an independent commission?
So NDFU's policy in action, that's our member-driven document. Our members get together every year and vote through a democratic process to decide what the positions of the organization should be. That document supports, our members have said, yeah, but we think a nonpartisan redistricting commission makes a lot of sense. Now, that's not the process we have this time around. And I think it's really important for folks to take advantage of the process that we do have. I think it's really important for folks to get engaged, call up the members of the committee, attend some of the meetings or watch them virtually. Make sure that you are sharing your local, your regional concerns with the redistricting committee and really engaging in this process.
You know, every legislator I ever met thought, you know, they're going to know who I am. If I walk into that small town cafe, they're going to know who their state senator is. You know what? Many times they don't. Many times they don't. The only time they care is when you get in trouble. You know, when you vote the wrong way, then I'll guarantee they're going to care and they're going to make sure that you know they're your constituent. That being said, if you're trying to build a coalition, when you get to that point, you're trying to bring in Republican, Democrat, rural member alike. These numbers are atrocious, Matt. They're going to be worse than ever in my lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, it's historic. Our districts are going to be the largest they've ever been. Our population is the largest it's ever been. And at the same time, we have these areas that have lost population. And so we're going to have some pretty significant shifts here. And again, I think that's why it's so important that people are engaged in the process. This isn't going to be like 2010. It's not going to be like 2000 or 1990. Our state's population has grown by the most it's ever grown since, I think, the 19-teens. So I think it's important that folks are involved, paying attention, and making sure that they're sharing their concerns as the process goes on.
You bet. Well, you're fighting the good fight for the rural area in a bipartisan way. So I appreciate that, Matt. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Guys, I'd like you to pull up the map again, if you could, because I want to give people some examples of what I think Matt is getting at, but I'm going to point out what I think a little bit more. Now look down in that far southeast corner and look at Richland County. You're going to notice Richland County, the very top of District 25, went into southern Cass County. Now you got to ask yourself why. When a lot of other Richland County could have went to the west and not carved out Ransom County the way it would, because that population base would have left it as whole as what it was. And part of Dickey County, you could have had Ransom, Sargent, Western Richland County together, and it would have met the population numbers. That is if you let 25 go into the Colfax area. I'm using this as an example just because that's where I live, but I have the reason why. I can tell you why those townships from Kindred to the east in Cass County are part of District 25, that little yellow area on top of the border between Cass and Richland. Here's why. Because there's an FM diversion that was proposed. In fact, it's being built now as we speak. Those people on the southern end of Cass County there, they didn't want the diversion. They would have required legislator, whoever that was, to stick up for them. Period. Plain and simple. I'm going to tell you the legislator that made sure those weren't part of Cass County. His name was Wes Belter. Wes Belter was for the diversion, didn't want to work on behalf of those individuals, and so he chopped them out. Now, what do they have in common with Richland County? Very little. Very little. Once the diversion's done, it was done. That's how this process works. That's what's going on. You take a look at some of those other counties that we just looked at, and the counties are all sliced apart in any way they can. You go back to when I was a legislator. When I was a legislator, I was in leadership. There was another gentleman named Jerry Kelsch, both Democrats. He from Fullerton, I from Hankinson. Population-wise, we didn't belong in the same district, but they sat there and they carved out the town of Hankinson and Dickey County without any concern about school districts, townships, county lines, just so they could make us run against each other. Now, the majority party, the Republican Party, has the power to do it again. So what are they going to do? Because they have a supermajority. Here's what I think they're going to do. They're going to take some of these individuals that are bat crazy, okay, I didn't say the word, wackos, how's that word? And they're going to make them run against each other. The Jason Heitkamps are going to run against the Larry Lewiks, for example. And so they're going to make Richland County whole. That's my prediction. And then you're going to see these races done where one of the individuals that they don't like working with loses. That's the point of all this. That's the point. They're not focusing on lines. They're focusing on an individual. That's why Matt's right, and the North Dakota Farmers Union is right. We need an independent commission to draw these lines and then let the chips fall where they may. Because for one thing, we need the rural area to stick up for each other. When we come back, we're going to visit with Dr. Nagpul again and get a chance to get his take on what some of the COVID numbers are. So stick around. We're going to keep going down the road.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and I'm coming to you with one of the most important commercials that I've ever done. All of you know what MyPillow and myself have gone through in the last 8 months in my efforts to bring the truth forward. Well, now you can help in a couple ways. First, get everyone you know to go to my new media platform, frankspeech.com. There you'll find all the footage from my cyber symposium and many other important broadcasts. Also, I am personally doing a new daily live show to get the truth out. It's at 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. Secondly, I'm offering some of the best prices ever on MyPillow products, but they're only available on frankspeech.com. Go to frankspeech.com now and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below to receive these exclusive MyPillow offers. Thank you and God bless.
Introducing the Cool Turtle, the ultra-comfortable mask enhancer that creates a protective, cool, and breathable space between your mask and your face. Simply slide under any mask or gaiter and immediately feel the refreshing pocket of air surrounding your face. Cool Turtle's ergonomically designed, soft, comfortable shell immediately reduces mask friction, allowing you to breathe and talk in a comfortable environment.
I can actually breathe. With the Cool Turtle, no more sweating.
It's like I don't even have a mask on.
Call now and get not one, not two, but 3 Cool Turtles for just $10. Order now and we'll send you 2 more Cool Turtles free. No fees, absolutely free. Plus, you can get a 10-pack of 4-ply face masks. Just pay a separate fee. This offer is not available on Amazon. Get the real Cool Turtle now.
Call 1-800-270-1219. That's 1-800-270-1219. Or visit getcoolturtle.com. Order now.
Seniors, are you aware that you could pay less for your car insurance?
Seniors can save money on their car insurance.
You might save a little, you might save a lot.
Maybe hundreds of dollars a year.
You might save 5% a year, maybe 10%, 15%, or even more.
That's a lot of money.
So call right now and find out just how much money you might be able to save.
1-800-699-0761. 1-800-699-0761.
I'm Rick Becker from No Apologies. Welcome to your after hours oasis of sanity. How can these people not see that they're just clowns?
We help simplify and educate you on things going on in the legislature and around the country.
Asking the hard-hitting questions.
But also having flea stack and Sid and Marty Croft stuff, and we've talked about that sometimes. It's bad.
Watch us weeknights at 9 Central on Beck News and online at beck.news.
It isn't good. The numbers are not good. And we're to a point now, you take a look at Louisiana, and you look at numbers of people hospitalized for COVID at a time there's a hurricane and a time that there's a need for oxygen, and then ask yourself how bad it's going. Well, we've had the privilege of visiting with Dr. Avish Nagpul, and Dr. Nagpul is the Infectious Disease Specialist with Sanford Health, and he's willing to come on again. Dr. Nagpul, good to have you back on with us.
Thank you, Joel.
The U.S. has reached 100,000 average daily COVID hospitalizations for the first time since winter. For the first time since last winter, we've got 100,000 people going in the hospital per day. Obvious question, would that number be the same if people went out and got vaccinated?
Absolutely not. This was completely preventable, Joel, and that's the sad part.
So, pointing out that, I think we need to make sure people understand the price we as a nation and even our area pay for all these increased individuals in the hospital. Can you explain to people what happens in hospital settings? I mean, look at the southern part of this country and what's happening right now. When you get slammed, for lack of a better way of putting this, when it comes to people having to be in the ICU.
So, Joel, we have been talking about this for the last 2 years now, and that message has not changed. Even when we started out with the pandemic, the primary focus is to flatten the curve, keep the hospital capacity to a manageable level. And we are once again failing at doing that despite availability of a very good vaccine. And that's heartbreaking. And unfortunately, that plays into the rhetoric that we still have a problem despite presence of a vaccine. Well, we still have a problem despite a very good vaccine is because people are not wanting to get the vaccine. And also because we have no community mitigation measures in place right now. So if you ever had a doubt in your mind whether mask worked, whether social distancing worked, well, here's your definitive proof. Despite availability of a very effective vaccine, we still have a huge wave to the point that it is even surpassing the numbers that we saw with the second wave last fall, and that is down to people refusing the vaccine and people not wanting any mitigation measures in the community right now. And as a result, we are going to suffer again as a society.
Now, I know that when things were at their worst, your profession got better. Knew more is probably a better way of putting it about how to treat individuals that came in with COVID and individuals that were incredibly ill because of COVID. Does that help? With all these new individuals coming into the hospital, are you able to save more lives with the knowledge that you have now? Forget about the vaccine for just a second, which apparently they have. Are you able to save their life now, and some of them you wouldn't be able to have saved it before?
Yes, of course, Joel. We have a monoclonal antibody that we can give to the patients before they get worse, before their oxygen drops. When they are in the hospital, we can give them drugs like Decadron and tocilizumab. So yes, we can save lives only if we have beds, only if we have access to oxygen. If we overwhelm our capacity, we'll be back to square one.
How's North Dakota doing? How is my home state doing?
Poorly. We have been saying that the transmission is widespread in the community. People need to wear masks. People need to get tested, and that's all falling on deaf ears. One of the arguments was that look at the hospitalization rates. We are not suffering as much as the southern states. Hospitalizations always lag behind a couple weeks. Once we start seeing widespread transmission in the community, it takes 8 to 10 days for people to get infected and then suffer respiratory collapse, for which they typically need hospitalization. And hospitalizations are not just for respiratory collapse. There are other different things that happen with COVID. Your risk of stroke increases manyfold after COVID. You can get blood clots in the lungs, blood clots in the legs. You can get renal failure with COVID. You can get delirium with COVID, especially with our nursing home population. They get confused because of lack of oxygen, so they may not require a ventilator support, but they need hospitalization because they are so confused and not taking their meds or having any oral intake, and they get dehydrated. So there's a lot of domino effect from getting COVID, and then then we have to pull our nurses and docs from OR to help manage people in the emergency room or the ICU or the hospital. And that puts other people at risk who need emergent surgeries. We have to pull our docs and nurses from the clinics to handle inpatient volumes, and that leads to more appointments getting postponed and more patients showing up in the ER because they don't have a primary care to serve their needs. So we are going to struggle, and we are going to struggle despite so much improvement in our knowledge and learning about COVID-19.
Now, I know that the medical profession is a very tight profession. You talk to each other. You learn from each other. We've got a hurricane going on our southern border right now. we've got a situation, as I made reference to earlier, where those hospital beds are needed and are really going to be needed. You also just mentioned the lack of oxygen. What do you do? I mean, if you're in Louisiana right now, what do you do? Do you just sit there and say, well, this is a life worth saving versus that life is worth saving? I mean, there were reports today that in some of these hospitals, they were 12 to 14 hours until they were going to be out of oxygen. I mean, as a medical professional, what do you do?
You know, it's heartbreaking. I'm not even sure what the right answer is, or if I know what to do. It's not like that our colleagues in Louisiana can send the patient to a neighboring state. They are all full, be it Texas, be it Arkansas, be it Mississippi, be it Alabama, be it Georgia, Florida. All states are full. Everybody's struggling. On top of that, you have a natural disaster. We get inquiries from Texas and Oklahoma to accept patients. It's heartbreaking, Joel. I cannot describe it.
So, you and I can be cordial. You're certainly more professional and cordial than I am when it comes to the vaccine. But we're sitting here in a situation where individuals are saying that until the Food and Drug Administration approves it, we're not going to do it. Now the Food and Drug Administration has given it its final approval, not just an emergency status, which it had before when they put that vaccine into my arm and your arm. But here we sit. They're still finding excuses why not to. We're talking about 100,000 people going into a hospital a day. We're talking about, a situation where no matter what the facts are, they won't do it. So I ask you this, is it time for them, the individuals that refuse it, to be forced to do it? And by forced, I'm not talking about door to door, you have to do this. What I'm talking about is the things that they love the most in their life, they can't do unless they've been vaccinated. An example, you're not going to a Minnesota Vikings game. You're not going to go to that concert unless you show your vaccination card. Would that be a decision you would make, doctor?
At some point of time, you just give up. This is why you are seeing vaccine mandates. This is why you are seeing New York doing things that it's doing, whether it's mandating vaccination for teachers or schools, or whether it's mandating vaccines to attend indoor concerts or indoor games. You can choose whether you want to keep arguing with people who don't want to listen to you, or whether you just give up and focus on what needs to be done right now, which is to take care of hospitalized patients. You cannot fight a battle on multiple fronts. And in the end, you try to convince people as much as you can. You try to reason with them. You try to show them the data. But if somebody has made up their mind and they are not going to listen to you, they are going to dig their heels deeper and deeper. And at that point of time, you go to your leaders, you go to your government, and you beg for help. And that help, when things go wrong, then we have to take these extreme measures, be it lockdown, be it mandatory vaccination, be it vaccination proof to enter an indoor venue. Nobody likes doing these things. I understand people don't like it. This is, we respect people's freedom, but it cannot come to the at a cost of lives and decimation of societal life on a recurrent basis.
Last question, doctor, because you gave, when you said give up at some point in terms of convincing people that won't be convinced to get vaccinated. I agree with you. I've been on your side and on your team when it comes to this for a long time. But at some point, does the American medical profession get to give up? At some point, do they get to say, no, if you haven't been vaccinated, you are no longer going to be the top priority when you come through the door. I have other people that need that hospital bed, that need that oxygen. At some point, can you foresee the American medical community saying, no, you made your choice?
No, Joel, we'll never do that. That's the wrong thing to do. I understand where you're coming from, but I've taken a Hippocratic oath. I'll never discriminate any patient on the basis of any decision they make. Anybody who needs our help comes into our doors, we'll take care of them regardless of their vaccination status. I can disagree with people, but I'll still uphold my Hippocratic oath.
Well, you're right. You're absolutely right when it comes to that. But I'm asking you, don't take them ice chips, if nothing else, doctor, okay? That was a joke. Dr. Nagpul, you're good people. You're a good person. Thank you, sir, for coming on.
Thank you, Joel.
Yeah. When we come back, we're going to talk about Afghanistan. We're going to talk about the timeline. We're going to talk about what's happening right now as we continue our trek down the road.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and as you know, my passion is to help each and every one of you get the best sleep of your life. That's why I created my new Giza Dreams bed sheets. I started by using the world's best cotton called Giza. It's only grown in a region between the Sahara Desert, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Nile River. It's ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. My Giza sheets also include full 21-inch wide pillowcases that will fit over any pillow and deep pocket sheets that will fit over any mattress. The first night you sleep on my sheets, you'll never want to sleep on anything else.
Go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen right now to get your very own MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets. Giza Dream Sheets are available in a variety of colors. Use your promo code, and for a limited time, when you buy one set of sheets, you'll get another set absolutely free.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
Non-attorney spokesperson. This is a paid advertisement for legal services sponsored by Nightline Legal. Cases assigned on a random basis to participating law firms. This drug remains approved by the FDA. If you or a loved one regularly took Zantac and were later diagnosed with cancer, call right now. You may be entitled to financial compensation. Potential cancers include bladder cancer, colon cancer, kidney cancer, stomach cancer, liver cancer, pancreatic cancer. Do not stop taking a prescribed medication without first consulting with your doctor. Discontinuing a prescribed medication without your doctor's advice can result in injury or death.
Call 1-800-230-9210.
Seniors, are you aware that you could pay less for your car insurance?
Seniors can save money on their car insurance.
You might save a little, you might save a lot.
Maybe hundreds of dollars a year.
You might save 5% a year, maybe 10%, 15%, or even more.
That's a lot of money.
So call right now and find out just how much money you might be able to save.
1-800-699-0761. 1-800-699-0761.
Hi, it's me, Anthony Sullivan. And yes, you've actually caught me at home relaxing, because life's been pretty worry-free since I got coverage with American Residential Warranty. You won't believe what ARW covers. Heating and air conditioning, washers and dryers, kitchen appliances, plumbing, water heaters, electrical systems, flat screens and laptops, even pools and spas, and so much more. Call American Residential Warranty. They'll get you covered.
1-800-219-1467. At Beck Communications, we've been planning for your future. Over the past decade, we've placed nearly 200,000 miles of dedicated fiber optics in the ground. Enough fiber optic strands to circle the world 8 times. Taking no shortcuts, we connected every home and business in our service area with dedicated fiber optics. It's your personal, unrestricted, unthrottled connection to the world. Best of all, this dedicated fiber means you do not share your connection. We call this intimate dedicated connection Beck Fiber.
All right, it's all over the news. It is, and it is the story. It's the story that everybody's paying attention to. The Biden administration's end to that 20-year war that we've been waging and been part of in Afghanistan. Let me give you my take on it in the beginning. We'll go through the timeline, then we'll talk about blame here, blame there, and we can have a talk about the policies that went through. But I'm not being a hypocrite here, because 20 years ago, I questioned us going into Afghanistan. And I was called a traitor. I was called many things. But I questioned whether or not we belonged in Afghanistan, because really going into Afghanistan was to do 2 things, as I saw it. And actually, that's how it was sold by Dick Cheney and George W. Bush. I say Dick Cheney because he was the driving force behind America being in a country that the Russians had already proved you can't control. So really, we were there in the beginning for 2 reasons. We were there because we were going to focus on getting the individuals that attacked us on 9/11, going after these terrorists and the places that they worked from. In other words, we're going after Osama bin Laden. We're going after Osama bin Laden. In the end, we got him. And we got him during an administration that nobody thought we were going to get him during, and that's right, the Obama administration. And that wasn't Barack Obama, other than, hey, go get him. That's where we think he is, taking advice. That was U.S. intelligence. It was U.S. military. And that could have happened under any administration, or hopefully under any administration. But those were the two reasons. The reason we were in Afghanistan, at least as it was told to us, was not to create a democratic country. That was not the focus. That is not why we were there. But it turned into that. And every administration up to this one is to blame for allowing that to go on. And I'm not just talking Republican. You know that I'm a Democrat. I'm not just talking Republican. The Bush administration started this mess. The Obama administration had every opportunity in 8 years to get us out of this mess. And the Trump administration promised us they would get us out of this mess. They had 4 years and they didn't get us out of this mess. Until in the end, they negotiated, right? And that was left as this big pile of, hey, we can do this when we get back, or Biden might have to clean it up. Well, Joe Biden did the same thing Donald Trump did. He pledged that he was going to get us out of Afghanistan. He's doing it. He's doing it. Now, how he's doing it is a big part of the debate. And it's worthy of that debate. And it is something that should be looked at another day. There should be that independent commission. There should be that group of people from both sides of the aisle. There should be that congressional hearing saying, how did we do this? What can we learn from it? How far back do we go to take a look at what happened? Now, here's the thing that I want you to keep in mind. Facts, okay? Let's go back to facts. In February of 2020, February now, in February 2020, Donald Trump negotiated with the Taliban. He signed an agreement with the Taliban. The Taliban, or the Afghan government, hated it. They didn't want it. They weren't part of it. And they were mad that he was negotiating with the Taliban because it weakened them. It weakened them. And it certainly weakened their supporters. It weakened the Afghan people. When they found out that the big brother in the country, with all the weapons, with all the drive, with all the, hey, this is what you got to do, was negotiating with the Taliban, many of them thought the gig was up. Okay? Can we appreciate and acknowledge that? And that happened in February of last year. Now let's go to March. That's when the head of Afghanistan said, what are you doing? Why are you negotiating this? And part of that negotiation was to release over 5,000 Afghan prisoners, or Taliban prisoners, I should put it that way, to the Taliban. These weren't good guys. These weren't good people, but they got them out. And that was one of the conditions they had. And the other part on our end was that the Taliban were going to knock it off. They were going to behave. They were going to leave the Afghan people alone. They were going to treat this as the potential for a country that didn't abuse women, that didn't do the things that the Taliban is known for, and that the Taliban were going to fight against terrorists. These were things that the Trump administration had worked for and asked for. But he was dealing with individuals that don't keep their word. And he should have known that. He should have known that. Certainly the Afghan people did. Now, you go in, as they reduced this, violence increased during this time period on the Afghan people. And what we agreed to was that we were going to reduce our forces in that country. Well, Trump did. He took us down to around, I think it's 2,300 people, somewhere around there. And so he reduced our military force in that country down to around 2,300 people. Meaning, okay, we can have a debate over whether or not we're ending this war the right way. We can have a debate over whether or not we're defending those Afghan people that want to get out of this country, and certainly a debate over whether or not we've got enough force there to protect the individuals that have been there for our country, our soldiers. 13 soldiers are dead during this process. And by the time you view this, there'll probably be more. We are during the biggest crunch time of all when it comes to it. But did we have enough force to protect it? I think that that's a fair question. And so you go forward. Trump said, and this was in September of 2020, Donald Trump said, we're dealing very well with the Taliban. They're very tough, they're very smart, they're very sharp, but you know it's been 19 years, and even they are tired of fighting. Well, they're not tired of fighting. And that's the truth. And they're still fighting. And they're still doing what they have to do to get their country. Now, Joe Biden put together a timeline, and he gave dates, and that was a mistake. That was a complete mistake. You don't tell people by this date we're all going to be pulled out, because then you see the chaos that you're seeing right now at the airport. I mean, you don't do that. You just don't. But keep this in mind. For all you individuals that all you want to talk about are those 13 veterans, those 13 soldiers that gave America the ultimate sacrifice, know this. 9 people per month died over the last 20 years. 9 people. 20,000 wounded. Suicide rate through the roof. So before you sit there and say that Biden didn't care about the military, that he didn't care about those soldiers, that 13 lives are on him, we can have that conversation. But how many of these other lives are on Donald Trump and Barack Obama and George W. Bush? Because this has gone on for long enough. Joe Biden's doing what he promised he'd do. He's getting us out of Afghanistan, as ugly as it might be. Someday, we're going to thank him. When we come back, some closing comments about COVID and a name you might know right after this.
Do you worry about going to the dentist? After all, a visit to the dentist can easily cost $2,000 or more. Well, relax. The Carefree dental card is now available in your area. Call now and we'll send your actual card at no cost today. With the Carefree dental card, you go to the dentist whenever you need and you instantly pay a lot less. Activate your card and you can start using it immediately. From exams and cleanings to more expensive procedures like crowns, dentures, even braces, they're all included with the Carefree dental card. Say you go to the dentist today without any card and your bill is, well, ouch. Wait a minute, let's try that again. You go to the dentist today and show your Carefree dental card, you save $525. The Carefree dental card is just $15.95 a month, so call now and make going to the dentist carefree.
Call 1-800-416-5739 to receive your Carefree dental card information kit. 1-800-416-5739. Call now.
I can't say enough good things about these nano hearing aids.
Real people talking about nano hearing aids.
The hearing quality is great.
Until now, hearing aids used to be too expensive for the average person. Until nano. Call now and you'll get your nano hearing aids for only $297. You'll save $100. When you buy one hearing aid, Nano will give you a second hearing aid free. Call right now.
1-800-213-3815.
Spas, etc.
You've come to know and trust us for over 18 years with the largest selection and showroom in Western North Dakota for our beautiful Sundance spas. Plus, you could pick out your next home experience with our selection of pool tables, shuffleboards, and fun accessories.
Spas, etc. Your relaxation destination on Main and Bismarck.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit mypillow.com.
Nobody, I don't know of anybody that wants someone to get COVID. It's serious, folks. It's serious. And I can tell you it's not the flu. And I can tell you that from firsthand experience and knowing many others who've contracted COVID. I've got a sister that months, and I'm talking about months later, still can't smell and can't taste. So it's real. It's real. Now, there are certain individuals out there who have refused to take the vaccine. And some of these individuals are individuals, if they stepped forward and said, look, I did it, you do it, would help a lot. Heroes. Heroes. Let me give you an example of one. North Dakota's very own Carson Wentz. We love him, right? We love Carson Wentz. He's ours. He came from Bismarck, went to NDSU, won some national championships, went to Philly. He's got a Super Bowl ring on his finger. And now he's in Indianapolis. Wouldn't get vaccinated. He's got COVID. He's come down through and it's announced that he's part of the COVID protocol. Now, we can sit there and say, well, good for the Colts, because if you're going to get it now. The season hasn't started yet. Now, we don't know where Carson's at in his rehab with the broken bone in his foot, but I know this. I know that Kirk Cousins, my quarterback with the Minnesota Vikings, won't get vaccinated. And if he's going to get it, I wish he'd get it now, because then his likelihood of being really sick from it later would be less. That being said, when it comes to Carson Wentz, who has a passion for football and a passion for competing, does this change anything? Does it? Now that he has had it, does he still say, well, this is less than the flu? Or did he wake up in the morning afraid of what this could do to him? I don't know. I don't know that answer. What I do know is this. I do know that what you have as you worry about, and for Carson Wentz and his family, you wouldn't be as worried about if he had been vaccinated. It's been great going down the road with you folks.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and as you know, my passion is to help each and every one of you get the best sleep of your life. That's why I created my new Giza Dreams bed sheets. I started by using the world's best cotton called Giza. It's only grown in a region between the Sahara Desert, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Nile River. It's ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. My Giza sheets also include full 21-inch wide pillowcases that will fit over any pillow and deep pocket sheets that will fit over any mattress. The first night you sleep on my sheets, you'll never want to sleep on anything else.
Go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen right now to get your very own MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets. Giza Dream Sheets are available in a variety of colors. Use your promo code, and for a limited time, when you buy one set of sheets, you'll get another set absolutely free.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit my